Welcome to Historical Legacies. Here, we dive into history's most intriguing stories, unraveling mysteries and uncovering truths from the past. Subscribe to join our journey through time's greatest moments. Part 1. Early Life of Titus. Titus Flavius Vespasianus was born on December 30th, 39 AD, during the rule of Emperor Caligula, a time when Rome was both opulent and turbulent. Born to the Flavian family, his father Vespasian was an ambitious and skilled general, while his mother, Domitilla, came from a less influential background. The Flavian family was relatively obscure compared to the ancient senatorial families that dominated Roman politics. Despite their modest beginnings, the Flavians were driven by a fierce desire for prominence, and Vespasian's military career created new opportunities for Titus and his siblings. Titus grew up immersed in a world of political change, closely observing his father's career as a general, a senator, and eventually as an important ally to the empire. Vespasian's role in the Roman military meant frequent absences, so Titus's upbringing was primarily guided by his mother and extended family. He was well-educated, studying with Rome's elite tutors in rhetoric, literature, and philosophy, shaping his mind and moral compass. Titus received rigorous training in oratory and public speaking, skills that were essential for any Roman seeking high office. His education also included the study of Greek language and culture, which he mastered, setting him apart as a cultured and refined Roman citizen. This training would become crucial in his later life as he navigated the expectations of the Roman elite and the empire's provinces. From a young age, Titus showed military promise, eager to follow in his father's footsteps. At 15, he began formal military training, learning the discipline, strategy, and endurance required of a Roman soldier. His early training taught him the importance of discipline and decisiveness, qualities that would define his leadership style. By the time he was a young man, Titus had already acquired skills in both combat and leadership, preparing him for the military and administrative roles that awaited him. He was known for his strong sense of duty and courage, traits that his father encouraged, believing Titus had the potential to bring honor to the Flavian name. Titus's early years were also marked by significant political events in Rome. As he matured, the Roman Empire faced challenges under emperors like Caligula and Nero, both of whom had reputations for cruelty and instability. Growing up in this period, Titus became acutely aware of the dangers and intrigues associated with power, shaping his cautious but ambitious character. He witnessed firsthand the importance of loyalty to Rome, a value that would influence his decisions throughout his life. His father's rise in Roman society offered Titus unique opportunities to observe the workings of power up close. As Vespasian took on significant military campaigns in the eastern provinces, Titus occasionally accompanied him, gaining a broader view of the empire and a sense of Rome's vastness. This experience left a lasting impression on Titus, who developed a deeper respect for Rome's military might and the responsibilities it entailed. The exposure also introduced him to the complexities of governing diverse peoples and maintaining order across great distances. Titus's formative years laid a foundation of strength, discipline, and ambition. These early experiences equipped him with the skills and insights necessary for leadership. As he transitioned from a young soldier to an aspiring statesman, Titus's destiny seemed aligned with Rome's growing need for capable leaders. This path would soon lead him into the heart of one of Rome's most defining conflicts. Part 2. The Flavian Rise to Power. The rise of the Flavian family to power marked a significant shift in Rome's political landscape. By the time Titus reached adulthood, Rome was caught in a whirlwind of political chaos. Following the tumultuous reign of Nero, a power vacuum emerged, culminating in a year that saw four emperors come and go in rapid succession. Known as the Year of the Four Emperors, this period underscored the fragility of Rome's leadership and revealed the desperate need for stability. With civil wars breaking out across the empire, it was a time of great uncertainty, one that would ultimately propel the Flavian family into the spotlight. During this time, Vespasian, Titus's father, served as a highly respected and effective general. He commanded legions in the eastern provinces, gaining both military achievements and political allies. As the chaos of civil war threatened to fracture the empire, Vespasian's loyalty and influence became critical to restoring order. Supported by his sons, Titus and Domitian, Vespasian began to make calculated moves, positioning himself as a legitimate contender for the throne. His combination of military strength, strategic alliances, and respect from his troops made him a viable alternative to the failed leadership in Rome. Titus played a crucial role in his father's rise. Recognized for his loyalty and competence, Titus took on significant responsibilities, acting as a trusted advisor and military leader. When Vespasian was proclaimed emperor by his troops in 69 AD, Titus's role expanded further, with his father entrusting him to manage the Eastern legions. Titus became an essential figure in the Flavian power structure, tasked with handling negotiations, stabilizing regions, and demonstrating the family's commitment to Rome's unity. He maintained a disciplined, capable presence, helping to enforce his father's policies and earn the loyalty of the Roman legions. The Flavian campaign to secure the throne was not without challenges. Rival claimants emerged, most notably Vitellius, who had already secured Rome. Vespasian, however, had the support of Egypt and other vital provinces, giving him control over Rome's grain supply, a critical advantage in the struggle for power. Titus's strategic and military acumen proved invaluable during this time, as he worked to maintain order and loyalty among the Eastern legions. By effectively leading these forces and demonstrating his tactical skill, Titus helped to secure the foundations of his father's rule. In the final stages of the civil conflict, Vespasian's forces, led by his generals, marched on Rome, and Vitellius was defeated. With Vitellius overthrown, Vespasian was firmly established as emperor, inaugurating the Flavian dynasty. This marked a new era for Rome, one that would focus on stability, financial recovery, and military strength. Titus, alongside his brother Domitian, was now part of a powerful family dynasty, with expectations that he would one day follow in his father's footsteps. The Flavians brought much-needed stability to Rome, which had suffered from excessive spending, corruption, and internal discord under Nero's rule. As Vespasian settled into his role as emperor, Titus continued to play a significant role in governing and consolidating power. He handled a variety of administrative tasks, including judicial responsibilities, and he gained a reputation for being both just and efficient. His popularity grew, though his close ties to his father also made him a focal point for public scrutiny. With each passing day, Titus solidified his reputation as a capable leader, demonstrating loyalty to his father and a commitment to Rome's prosperity. These experiences forged his character, preparing him for the eventual weight of the imperial crown. As Vespasian's rule strengthened, Rome's faith in the Flavian dynasty solidified, setting the stage for Titus's future as a ruler. The family's rise marked a new phase for the empire, a time when Rome desperately needed order and stability. For Titus, this journey was just beginning, as he would soon face challenges that would test his courage, resilience, and compassion. Part 3: Titus and the Siege of Jerusalem. Titus's reputation as a military leader was solidified through his role in the brutal and complex Siege of Jerusalem, a campaign that would become one of the defining moments of his life. In 66 AD, a Jewish revolt against Roman rule erupted in Judea, fueled by religious and political tensions. Rome responded swiftly, deploying forces to quell the uprising. Vespasian, then a respected general, was tasked with leading the campaign, bringing with him both tactical expertise and a determination to reassert Roman authority. By his side was Titus, who had rapidly risen through the military ranks and was now second in command. For Titus, this campaign would serve as a major test of his abilities, exposing him to the realities of war and the complexities of leadership. In 70 AD, after years of conflict, Titus assumed full command of the Roman forces in Judea, following his father's departure to claim the imperial throne. His mission was clear: capture Jerusalem and crush the rebellion, restoring Roman control over the region. The siege was a grueling operation, marked by strategic maneuvering, psychological warfare, and intense fighting. The city of Jerusalem was heavily fortified, with thick walls and a motivated, determined defense led by Jewish zealots unwilling to submit. Titus faced a resilient enemy, and he knew that a prolonged siege could drain resources and morale. With careful planning, he initiated a series of attacks that combined tactical skill with brute force. Titus employed a variety of siege tactics to penetrate the city's defenses. His engineers constructed siege towers, battering rams, and a circumvallation wall to prevent supplies from entering Jerusalem. The tactics were harsh but effective, slowly breaking down the city's defenses while cutting off vital resources from its inhabitants. Starvation and disease began to spread within the city walls, weakening both the defenders' will to fight and the civilian population's ability to survive. Despite the suffering caused by these measures, Titus remained focused on his goal of bringing the conflict to an end. The siege tested his patience and determination, but he understood that victory was necessary for the stability of the Roman Empire. The final assault on Jerusalem was brutal. Titus's forces eventually breached the walls, engaging in intense close-quarters combat as they advanced through the city's streets. The Jewish defenders fought fiercely, and the battle turned the city into a landscape of destruction. According to historical accounts, including those of Josephus, a Jewish historian who witnessed the siege, the Temple of Jerusalem was ultimately set ablaze. The destruction of the temple became a symbol of the conflict's severity and the devastating impact of Rome's conquest. While some sources suggest that Titus may have tried to preserve the temple, the chaos of battle ultimately led to its destruction, a loss that resonated deeply within Jewish culture and history. The siege culminated in a Roman victory, but the cost was high. Thousands perished, and the city lay in ruins. Titus ordered his soldiers to spare those who surrendered, showing a degree of mercy that contrasted with the siege's brutality. Nevertheless, the conflict left a lasting scar, both on the Jewish people and on Titus himself. As the victorious general, he was celebrated in Rome as a hero, but he also faced criticism from those who viewed the siege as excessively harsh. The events in Jerusalem weighed heavily on Titus's conscience, shaping his views on governance and his approach to power. The triumph he achieved was stained by the memory of suffering and loss. Returning to Rome after the siege, Titus was honored with a triumphal procession, a celebration that cemented his status as a Roman hero. He carried with him not only the spoils of war, but also the experiences and lessons that would influence his future as emperor. The siege of Jerusalem had proven his military prowess, but it had also introduced him to the harsh realities of leadership and the ethical dilemmas of command. As he moved forward, Titus would carry these experiences, setting the stage for his complex and transformative reign. Part 4. The Triumph and Rome's Response. The return of Titus to Rome after the fall of Jerusalem was marked by one of the most spectacular triumphs in Roman history. On his journey back, Titus was welcomed as a hero, his name synonymous with victory and power. The triumph was a lavish affair, a public celebration that would both honor his military achievements and solidify his place in the Roman pantheon of great leaders. As part of the grand procession, Titus paraded through the streets of Rome, accompanied by captured treasures, prisoners, and war trophies, including the iconic menorah from the Temple of Jerusalem. This triumph, symbolizing Roman strength and dominance, was meant to remind the people of the empire's power and the might of its generals. However, while Titus was celebrated as a conqueror, the impact of the campaign on Rome itself was more complicated. His victory over the Jewish revolt would be remembered for its brutality, as well as its strategic success. Some Romans were divided over the method by which victory was achieved, with debates swirling around the morality of the siege and the destruction of the Temple of Jerusalem. Nevertheless, the grandeur of Titus's triumph allowed him to bask in the public's admiration, and for a time, the triumphal procession eclipsed any criticisms. For Titus, this moment of glory marked both the pinnacle of his military career and a complex point in his relationship with Rome. The general who had destroyed Jerusalem now found himself in a position where his actions would be scrutinized by both his people and his fellow leaders. In the eyes of the Roman Senate, Titus had delivered a decisive blow to the Jewish rebels, reinforcing the authority of Rome across the empire. Yet some senators remained uncomfortable with the scale of the destruction and the loss of life, creating a subtle tension between Titus's public image as a hero and the underlying moral questions raised by the siege. As much as Titus was lauded for his victory, the question of whether it had been a morally justifiable act loomed over his triumph. It was this complex dynamic that would characterize much of his reign. While the people cheered in the streets, the intellectual elite wrestled with the ethical implications of his military decisions. Despite this, Titus's personal popularity among the Roman masses remained high. He was seen not only as a great military leader, but also as a compassionate ruler, a leader who cared deeply for the well-being of the Roman people. In the aftermath of the triumph, Titus began to solidify his reputation as a ruler who balanced his imperial duties with a commitment to justice and the welfare of his citizens. His public works were seen as a reflection of this philosophy, and one of his first acts as emperor was to address the issues that had plagued Rome in the wake of the Jewish War. During his reign, Titus demonstrated his concern for the Roman people through both acts of generosity and pragmatic governance. His commitment to ensuring the city's recovery from the destruction caused by the war and his handling of the various challenges facing the empire contributed to his growing image as a good emperor. He used the momentum from his military triumph to secure his legitimacy, ensuring that his actions would be remembered favorably by the populace. Yet as Titus enjoyed his victories, there were still challenges to face. Rome was dealing with the aftermath of war, economic challenges, and the rebuilding of both its infrastructure and its image. The city had suffered from the ravages of war, both in terms of physical damage and social upheaval. Titus's reign would be defined by his ability to rebuild and restore Rome's greatness while also addressing the needs of its people. The triumph over Jerusalem was just one chapter in his rule, a chapter that allowed him to begin his reign on a high note, but also laid the foundation for more difficult tasks ahead. As he transitioned into his imperial role, Titus recognized that his leadership would be tested not only by his military prowess, but also by his ability to heal the wounds caused by the war and the internal strife of the empire. Part 5. The Mount Vesuvius eruption. In 79 AD, a natural disaster struck that would become one of the most infamous events in Roman history, a catastrophe that would test Titus's leadership and define his legacy. The eruption of Mount Vesuvius, one of the most destructive volcanic eruptions in recorded history, occurred on August 24th, sending plumes of ash and molten rock high into the sky and causing widespread devastation across the Bay of Naples. Cities like Pompeii, Herculaneum, and Stabiae were buried under tons of volcanic ash and pumice, killing thousands and leaving survivors in a state of shock. The eruption devastated the region, and the Roman Empire was forced to respond swiftly to rescue survivors, recover bodies, and begin the long process of rebuilding. As emperor, Titus was immediately thrust into action, tasked with coordinating relief efforts for the affected regions. His response to the disaster would demonstrate both his compassion and his capacity for effective governance in times of crisis. This event would test not only his imperial authority, but also his ability to restore hope in the face of calamity. The eruption occurred just as Titus was consolidating his rule, making it one of the first significant challenges of his reign. Upon learning of the eruption, Titus acted swiftly, ordering relief efforts to begin immediately. He sent emergency teams to the affected cities, dispatching Roman soldiers to help with the rescue operations, recover the dead, and search for survivors. These soldiers, trained in battle, now became part of a humanitarian effort, digging through the rubble to find those trapped beneath it. Titus's leadership in the wake of the eruption showcased his ability to remain calm and make decisive decisions during moments of profound crisis. His response to the disaster not only provided immediate aid to those in need, but also helped to prevent panic and ensure that the recovery process began as quickly as possible. This swift action earned him praise from both the Roman public and the Senate, solidifying his reputation as an emperor who prioritized the welfare of his people. He used his resources, including financial aid from the imperial treasury, to fund reconstruction efforts, ensuring that the devastated cities received the help they needed. Titus's focus was not just on the immediate aftermath, but also on the long-term recovery of the region, knowing that this disaster could have lingering effects on the economy and morale of the empire. Titus's approach to disaster relief revealed a deep sense of responsibility and empathy, contrasting with the ruthless military persona he had earned in the conquest of Jerusalem. While he had been viewed as a formidable warrior, his response to the eruption reflected the softer side of his character, showing that he was not just a conqueror, but also a leader who cared deeply for the well-being of his citizens. This aspect of his reign would become a defining part of his legacy, as it revealed a ruler who understood the importance of both military might and compassionate leadership. The Roman public viewed Titus's actions as both noble and responsible, further cementing his popularity and making him one of the most beloved emperors in Roman history. Titus also ensured that efforts were made to restore the prosperity of the cities in the aftermath of the eruption. He provided financial aid to the affected regions, compensating citizens and ensuring that they could rebuild their homes and businesses. He worked tirelessly to ensure that the agricultural output of the region would return to normal, making sure that the surrounding farms and vineyards could resume production, which was crucial to Rome's economy. In this way, Titus demonstrated his practical and long-term approach to governance, ensuring that recovery efforts were sustainable and comprehensive. His ability to manage the crisis and lead Rome's recovery would become one of his key achievements, further defining his reign as one marked by effective leadership in the face of adversity. Titus's response to the eruption of Mount Vesuvius not only showcased his competency as a ruler, but also endeared him to his people, as it demonstrated that he was a leader who could handle both the destructive forces of nature and the political complexities of governance. It was in this moment of crisis that Titus proved to be more than just a military conqueror. He became a symbol of Rome's resilience and a model of imperial leadership. The eruption marked a pivotal point in his reign, revealing a side of Titus that would come to define his legacy for generations to come. Part 6. The completion of the Colosseum. One of the most enduring legacies of Titus's reign is the completion of the Colosseum, a monumental achievement that symbolized both the grandeur of the Flavian dynasty and the Roman Empire's commitment to entertainment, public life, and engineering prowess. The Colosseum, originally called the Flavian Amphitheater, was conceived by Titus's father, Vespasian, as part of his broader efforts to leave a lasting mark on the Roman world. Construction began under Vespasian's rule in 72 AD, but it was Titus who completed the grand structure in 80 AD, just a few years after assuming the imperial throne. The Colosseum was intended not only as a magnificent architectural marvel, but also as a gift to the Roman people, a way for the Flavians to solidify their connection with the masses and ensure the stability of their rule. The Colosseum was designed to hold up to 50,000 spectators, offering an arena for gladiatorial combat, mock sea battles, animal hunts, and other public spectacles. The sheer scale of the amphitheater was a testament to the engineering genius of the Romans, and its grandeur symbolized the empire's power and wealth. But the Colosseum also held deeper political significance, as its completion coincided with Titus's efforts to gain favor with the Roman populace after the challenges posed by the Jewish War and the eruption of Mount Vesuvius. Titus's decision to complete the Colosseum was a strategic move to solidify his popularity and demonstrate his commitment to Roman values of spectacle, martial excellence, and entertainment. The opening ceremonies of the Colosseum were nothing short of spectacular, featuring 100 days of games, which included gladiatorial combats, animal hunts, and mock naval battles. These events served to showcase not only the grandeur of the Colosseum, but also Titus's ability to provide for the entertainment of the Roman people on an unprecedented scale. The games were a demonstration of imperial generosity, as they provided an opportunity for the people of Rome to revel in the lavish spectacles while reinforcing Titus's role as the benevolent emperor who could provide such grand public events. During the opening of the Colosseum, Titus also showcased his ability to coordinate such a monumental event, which brought together both the military and the imperial court, illustrating the harmonious relationship between Rome's might and its cultural identity. The games were a carefully planned spectacle designed to affirm his connection with the people of Rome, while subtly reminding them of the empire's power and the emperor's generosity. Titus's completion of the Colosseum, however, was not just a moment of celebration for the Roman public. It was also an expression of his vision for Rome's future. The Colosseum would become a symbol of the unity of the Flavian dynasty, representing both the victories of Vespasian and Titus's own leadership. It served as a unifying force in the empire, providing a space where all social classes could come together, from the common citizens to the elites, and participate in the grandeur of Roman life. Titus understood that the Colosseum's completion was more than just a physical structure. It was an enduring symbol of Rome's imperial might and cultural identity. Despite the extravagance of the games, the Colosseum's creation also reflected Titus's pragmatism as a ruler. The amphitheater was built on the site of Nero's Golden House, a lavish palace complex that had been associated with the excesses and tyranny of the previous emperor. By constructing the Colosseum on this site, Titus made a symbolic statement of returning power to the people, rather than continuing the indulgent practices of the Emperor Nero. In this way, The Colosseum was a powerful tool for shaping public opinion, as it signified the restoration of Rome's values under the Flavian regime, marking a break from the past and the beginning of a new era. The Colosseum would remain one of the most iconic landmarks in Rome for centuries, representing the power of the empire and the vision of the Flavian emperors. In completing this extraordinary project, Titus ensured that his reign would be remembered not only for his military achievements, but also for his cultural and architectural contributions. The amphitheater would outlast the Flavian dynasty, becoming an enduring symbol of Roman culture and empire, and Titus would be forever linked to its construction and the legacy it left for future generations. Part 7. Titus's approach to governance. Titus's reign, though short, was marked by an approach to governance that balanced pragmatism with compassion, setting him apart from many of his predecessors and contemporaries. While the early years of his reign were overshadowed by the catastrophic eruption of Mount Vesuvius and the aftermath of the Jewish War, Titus's ability to handle these crises with poise and decisiveness began to shape his image as a ruler concerned with the welfare of his people. His administrative style was characterized by a deep sense of duty to Rome and its citizens, and his decisions were often driven by a desire to restore stability and prosperity to an empire that had endured significant challenges in the years leading up to his ascension. Titus's governance was pragmatic, particularly in the way he sought to address the various pressing issues that had emerged under his father Vespasian's rule. One of his first acts as emperor was to institute measures aimed at improving the empire's finances, which had been strained by the prolonged campaigns in Judea and the aftermath of the civil war during the Year of the Four Emperors. Titus inherited an empire facing fiscal challenges, but he understood that the economy had to be stabilized for Rome to continue its dominance. His first financial reforms involved strengthening the imperial treasury and reducing wasteful spending, an effort that helped ensure the long-term viability of the empire. This practical approach to governance demonstrated his understanding of the importance of financial stability in maintaining imperial power. Titus's style of ruling was notably less autocratic than that of some of his predecessors. He had inherited the imperial throne from his father Vespasian, but he maintained a collaborative approach with the Senate and the Roman elite, working to avoid the concentration of power in his own hands. While he held supreme authority as emperor, Titus often consulted with the Senate on matters of governance, preferring to share responsibility and present a unified front to the Roman people. This willingness to work with the Senate, rather than simply asserting his dominance, helped to maintain a sense of stability and continuity within the political framework of the empire. It was a delicate balance between central authority and senatorial collaboration, and it allowed Titus to govern without alienating key political factions. Titus's reign also witnessed a shift in the tone of Roman imperial leadership, with an increased focus on public welfare. He became known for his generosity and his concern for the common people, a stark contrast to the more austere or indulgent reigns of other emperors. He provided financial aid to communities affected by disasters, such as the eruption of Vesuvius, and helped rebuild parts of Rome that had been damaged by fire or other calamities. His public works, such as the restoration of temples and the construction of new infrastructure, were geared towards benefiting not just the elite but the populace as a whole. This made Titus well-liked among the masses, as they saw in him a ruler who valued their well-being and sought to improve their quality of life. His efforts to make public life more accessible and enjoyable also included support for the arts, entertainment, and religious institutions, further solidifying his reputation as a compassionate emperor. Despite his popularity, Titus's reign was not without its difficulties. One of the most challenging issues he faced was the ongoing financial strain caused by his father's large-scale building projects and military campaigns. Titus had to find ways to fund these initiatives without overburdening the people with excessive taxes. He sought to address this issue by finding ways to increase revenue from the provinces, making sure that the empire's wealth was distributed more evenly without imposing undue hardship on Roman citizens. This effort was important for preserving the balance between the empire's economic needs and the public's expectations of imperial generosity. Titus also navigated the intricacies of foreign policy with a diplomatic touch, working to maintain Rome's position of dominance without resorting to unnecessary conflict. He inherited a stable relationship with the provinces, but his reign was marked by several smaller diplomatic efforts aimed at securing Rome's interests while avoiding direct military confrontation. This approach showed his understanding of the importance of diplomacy in maintaining the empire's vast borders and securing peace within its territories. Overall, Titus's approach to governance combined the qualities of a skilled administrator with those of a compassionate ruler. His reign was marked by a commitment to rebuilding the empire's foundations, a focus on the welfare of the people, and an emphasis on maintaining the strength and unity of Rome through practical reforms and wise leadership. Titus's governance style would be remembered as one that prioritized both the material and moral strength of the empire, leaving behind a legacy of a ruler who genuinely cared for the well-being of his people. Part 8. Titus's relationship with the Senate. Titus's relationship with the Senate was a key factor in the success of his reign, and it played an essential role in ensuring the stability of his rule. Unlike many emperors, who sought to dominate the Senate and bypass its influence, Titus approached his role with a sense of diplomacy and respect for Roman tradition. His ability to maintain a harmonious relationship with the Senate was critical, especially given the political turbulence of the preceding decades. The Senate, which had seen its power wane during the reigns of some emperors, found in Titus a ruler who, while holding ultimate authority, was willing to collaborate with it and seek its counsel. This approach helped to foster an atmosphere of cooperation and mutual respect, which in turn reinforced the stability of his government. Titus's efforts to maintain good relations with the Senate were rooted in his understanding of the importance of the political elite to the functioning of the Roman state. The Senate had been a central institution in the Roman Republic, and even under imperial rule, it still held significant sway, particularly in matters of legislation, appointments, and the representation of Roman aristocratic interests. Titus was aware that his power as emperor depended not only on the support of the people, but also on the backing of the Senate, which could, if dissatisfied, undermine his authority. By involving the Senate in key decisions, Titus ensured that the governing body felt invested in his leadership, and in turn, it helped maintain Rome's political unity. His relationship with the Senate was also shaped by his father Vespasian's policies, which had aimed to restore the authority of the Senate following the chaotic year of the four emperors. Vespasian had worked to ensure that the Senate remained an important political force, and Titus continued this approach by respecting its role in governance. Unlike his contemporaries, who sometimes acted unilaterally or saw the Senate as a challenge to imperial power, Titus viewed it as an institution that could complement his leadership and offer valuable insight into the needs and concerns of the aristocracy. He often consulted with senators on matters of policy, giving them a sense of involvement in the imperial governance of the empire. At the same time, Titus understood that the Senate was not a uniform body, and there were always members who could be discontented or pose challenges to imperial authority. His diplomatic approach involved managing dissent within the Senate and ensuring that opposition voices were heard without allowing them to disrupt the overall functioning of the government. Titus skillfully balanced the expectations of the Senate with his own vision for the empire, maintaining the respect of the elite without yielding to excessive demands or compromising his authority. One of the ways that Titus worked to strengthen his relationship with the Senate was through his charitable acts and public displays of generosity. During his reign, he was known for rewarding senators for their loyalty and service, providing financial support for their families, and ensuring that they were recognized for their contributions to Rome's governance. This helped to solidify his relationship with the senatorial class, as it presented him as a ruler who valued the contributions of the elite and recognized their importance in the broader political framework of the empire. Titus's public works and improvements to Rome also played a role in this process, as many senators saw these efforts as a reflection of his commitment to the empire's prosperity. While Titus was generally well-liked by the Senate, his relationship with the institution was not without its complexities. Some senators, particularly those who were more conservative in their views, may have been wary of his relative youth and his association with his father's military campaign in Judea. These concerns, however, did not lead to any significant opposition to his rule, and Titus's handling of the Senate ensured that any political dissent was manageable without undermining the unity of Rome's ruling elite. His approach to governance, characterized by a combination of diplomacy, respect for tradition, and shrewd political maneuvering, allowed him to consolidate power without alienating key members of the Senate. Titus's careful management of the Senate was an essential component of his broader strategy of stabilizing the empire and securing his legacy as a ruler who was both strong and compassionate. His ability to collaborate with the Senate, seek its advice, and respect its role within the Roman political system ensured that his reign was marked by relative peace and cooperation, both in the Senate and within the broader empire. In this way, Titus exemplified the type of emperor who understood the importance of governance that balanced autocratic power with the involvement of Rome's traditional institutions. Part 9. The Flavian Dynasty and its Legacy. The Flavian dynasty, established by Titus's father Vespasian, marked a new chapter in the history of the Roman Empire, and under Titus's leadership, the dynasty reached its zenith, leaving a profound and lasting legacy. While the Flavians were not of ancient noble stock, they came to represent the power of discipline, pragmatism, and resilience in a time when Rome was recovering from political instability and civil war. The Flavian dynasty was founded on the success of Vespasian, who had risen from military officer to emperor after a period of chaos, following the tumultuous year of the Four Emperors. The dynasty's rise was emblematic of Rome's ability to restore order and balance through strong leadership. Under Vespasian's rule, Rome saw a period of consolidation, rebuilding, and stability, which provided the foundation for his sons Titus and Domitian to continue the dynasty's success. When Titus assumed the throne in 79 AD, he inherited not just the imperial purple, but also the significant accomplishments of his father. Vespasian's military conquests, such as the crushing of the Jewish revolt and the securing of Roman borders, had established the Flavian legacy of strength and territorial expansion. Vespasian had also initiated large-scale public works projects, such as the construction of the Colosseum, which his son Titus completed. In this way, Titus's reign was both a continuation and a refinement of his father's vision, as he capitalized on the Flavian foundations to bring about further imperial consolidation. The Colosseum, perhaps the most iconic symbol of the Flavian dynasty, was not only an architectural marvel, but also a tool for solidifying the legitimacy of the Flavians as rulers of Rome. Titus's completion of the amphitheater in 80 AD demonstrated that he had embraced his father's vision for monumental public spectacles and grand architectural projects as symbols of imperial power. The games held during the Colosseum's opening were not just for entertainment, but were a deliberate statement about the wealth, generosity, and strength of the Flavian emperors. These events showcased Titus as a ruler who, following in Vespasian's footsteps, understood the importance of presenting the empire in its full glory to both the people of Rome and the broader world. Titus's reign also emphasized a commitment to the Roman people, a theme central to the Flavian dynasty. After the eruption of Mount Vesuvius and the devastation it caused, Titus worked diligently to restore the affected regions, providing financial aid and assistance for rebuilding efforts. In doing so, he reflected his father's practical approach to governance, with an emphasis on public welfare and imperial responsibility. Titus's ability to balance his role as an imperial leader with his commitment to the people further solidified the Flavians' reputation as rulers who were invested in the well-being of their citizens. However, while the Flavian dynasty was marked by success and military glory, it also faced challenges in its final years, particularly under the reign of Titus's younger brother, Domitian. Domitian's rule, which began after Titus's untimely death in 81 AD, would be very different from Titus's approach to governance. Domitian adopted a more autocratic and often paranoid style of rule, earning him a controversial place in history. This contrast between Titus's relatively moderate and compassionate leadership and Domitian's harsh and despotic reign highlights the distinctive nature of Titus's legacy as a Flavian emperor. Titus's reign, though brief, was defined by a sense of continuity in the Flavian legacy, but it also represented a moment of transition between the father's more military-driven reign and the brother's more autocratic style of governance. Titus's unexpected death at the age of 41 was a blow to the Flavian dynasty, as many saw him as the ideal ruler, one who balanced military might with public service. His early death left his younger brother Domitian to carry on the Flavian name, but Titus's reign is often viewed as the height of the dynasty's glory, with his death marking the end of an era. The Flavian dynasty's legacy extended beyond the reign of Titus, however, with its imprint remaining on Rome's infrastructure, its military strength, and its relationship with the Senate and the people. The Flavians also left a legacy of monumental architecture, public spectacles, and a renewed sense of imperial authority. Though the dynasty's rule was short-lived, Its impact on Roman history cannot be overstated, and Titus's contributions to this legacy were instrumental in ensuring the Flavian dynasty's place in the annals of Roman imperial history. Titus's reign, as part of the Flavian dynasty, ensured that the empire would be remembered for its triumphs, both in terms of territorial expansion and in the cultural legacy left behind, most notably through structures like the Colosseum. Part 10. The eruption of Mount Vesuvius. One of the defining moments of Titus's reign, and a significant event in Roman history, was the eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD. This catastrophic disaster forever altered the lives of those living in the Bay of Naples, particularly the cities of Pompeii, Herculaneum, and Stabi. The eruption, which occurred just weeks after Titus ascended to the throne, left the Roman Empire reeling in the wake of its devastation. The loss of life was staggering, and the eruption buried entire cities under volcanic ash, freezing them in time and creating a tragic but invaluable record of Roman life in the 1st century. In the immediate aftermath, Titus's response was swift and measured. His father Vespasian had already established a reputation for pragmatic leadership, and Titus quickly followed in those footsteps, demonstrating both compassion and practicality in the face of a national crisis. The emperor provided financial aid to the affected regions, directing resources for the relief of survivors, and sending officials to oversee the rescue and recovery operations. Titus understood the gravity of the situation and sought to restore stability to the region, giving the people of Pompeii and Herculaneum a sense of hope and security during a time of unimaginable loss. His actions were not simply a reaction to the disaster, but a demonstration of the Flavian commitment to the welfare of the Roman people, further cementing his reputation as a ruler who genuinely cared for his citizens. The eruption of Mount Vesuvius also had a profound impact on the economy of the region. The destruction of major agricultural areas and commercial hubs affected the supply of goods throughout the empire, and the rebuilding process would take years to fully restore the region's former prosperity. Titus understood that the restoration of the Bay of Naples was essential not only for the survivors, but also for the empire's economic stability. To aid in the recovery, Titus dispatched engineers and architects to assess the damage and begin reconstruction efforts as quickly as possible. He authorized the rebuilding of public infrastructure and ensured that the survivors received the aid they needed, including funds, food, and land to help them rebuild their lives. His generosity in the aftermath of the eruption became a defining aspect of his reign, demonstrating that he was not just a ruler focused on grand projects, but one who took personal responsibility for the welfare of his people. The eruption also brought attention to the vulnerability of Rome's territories to natural disasters, leading to a more focused imperial response to such events in the future. Titus's actions in response to the eruption laid the groundwork for a more organized and systematic approach to dealing with disasters, a policy that would be expanded upon by future emperors. He established a framework for relief efforts that would be put to use in subsequent natural calamities, ensuring that Roman citizens and provinces could rely on the imperial government for assistance in times of crisis. Despite the catastrophic nature of the event, the eruption of Mount Vesuvius also had a cultural impact that would resonate throughout Roman history. The preserved cities of Pompeii and Herculaneum, buried under volcanic ash, would not only serve as a tragic reminder of the destructive power of nature, but also as an invaluable archaeological record of Roman life. These cities, once excavated, would provide scholars with a unique insight into daily Roman life, offering up artifacts, frescoes, and even inscriptions that revealed much about the art, culture, and economy of the empire. The eruption, while devastating, inadvertently preserved a moment in time, offering a glimpse into a world that was lost but not forgotten. The immediate aftermath of the eruption left the survivors in a state of disarray and fear, but Titus's prompt action helped stabilize the situation. His intervention marked a pivotal moment in the Roman Empire's response to natural disasters, and his leadership during this time showed the Roman people that their emperor was not only concerned with military glory or architectural triumphs, but also deeply invested in their welfare during times of hardship. Although the eruption itself was not directly caused by Titus's actions, his ability to manage the recovery efforts helped solidify his legacy as a ruler who was responsive to the needs of his people, and who possessed the leadership qualities necessary to navigate a national crisis. Titus's response to the eruption of Mount Vesuvius underscored his commitment to both the immediate and long-term recovery of the empire and reinforced his position as an emperor deeply connected to the everyday lives of the Roman populace. Part 11. The Jewish War and its Impact. One of the most significant chapters in Titus's life and reign was his involvement in the Jewish War, which began in 66 AD and culminated in the destruction of the Second Temple in Jerusalem in 70 AD. Though Titus did not ascend to the throne until 9 years later, his role as a military commander during the war was crucial, and it played a pivotal part in shaping his legacy as an emperor. The war itself was a defining conflict, rooted in religious, cultural, and political tensions between the Jewish population in Judea and the Roman Empire. The Romans had long been in control of Judea, but by the mid-1st century AD, tensions had escalated into open revolt, fueled by religious zeal, political discontent, and economic hardship. Titus, the eldest son of Vespasian, was placed in command of the Roman forces in Judea in 69 AD, when the rebellion had grown into a full-scale war. His military campaign, marked by a series of brutal sieges, ultimately led to the fall of Jerusalem and the destruction of the iconic Second Temple. Titus's leadership during the siege of Jerusalem was decisive, but it was also marked by controversy and debate over the harsh tactics employed by the Romans. The siege itself, which lasted for months, involved a range of strategies designed to weaken the defenders of the city, culminating in the capture of the temple and the widespread destruction of Jerusalem's religious and cultural heart. The fall of Jerusalem in 70 AD was a turning point not only for the Jewish people but also for the Roman Empire. The victory allowed Rome to solidify its control over the province of Judea and secure its borders, but it also marked a moment of profound cultural loss for the Jewish people. The destruction of the Second Temple, one of the holiest sites in Judaism, had a lasting impact on Jewish religious and cultural practices. Despite the cruelty of the siege, Titus's actions were later interpreted by some as a means to restore order in a rebellious province, and his role in the campaign was viewed by his contemporaries as a demonstration of Roman strength and imperial authority. The conquest of Jerusalem was a major achievement for Titus and for his father Vespasian, who had become emperor during the course of the war. It marked the final phase of the Jewish revolt and represented the complete suppression of Jewish resistance to Roman rule. For the Romans, the victory was a symbol of the empire's dominance over a rebellious province, and it was celebrated with triumphal displays in Rome, including a grand procession in which Titus was paraded through the streets, showcasing the spoils of the war and the captured prisoners. One of the most enduring symbols of this triumph is the Arch of Titus, which still stands in Rome today, serving as a reminder of the Roman victory over the Jews and the emperor's role in the conquest. The arch depicts scenes from the sacking of Jerusalem, including Roman soldiers carrying off the sacred menorah from the temple, a powerful image of Roman supremacy, and the destruction of the Jewish faith's most sacred relics. This monument was not just a commemoration of military victory, but a statement of Roman imperialism, reinforcing the idea that Rome was invincible and that its emperors were divinely chosen to lead the empire to glory. The Jewish War and the destruction of Jerusalem were not only significant for the political and military impact they had on the empire, but also for the way they shaped the religious landscape of the Roman world. For the Jewish people, the loss of the Second Temple was a tragedy that would resonate for centuries, reshaping Jewish identity and practices in ways that would not be fully understood until much later. For the Romans, however, the victory was an affirmation of their imperial mission, reinforcing the image of the emperor as a conqueror of peoples and cultures. The success of Titus in the Jewish War elevated his standing as a military leader and contributed to the strength of the Flavian dynasty, cementing his place in history as one of Rome's great military commanders. While the Jewish War demonstrated Titus's military prowess, it also revealed the darker side of Roman imperialism. The siege of Jerusalem and the destruction of the temple were remembered by some as examples of Roman brutality, a fact that would be acknowledged and debated by later historians and scholars. In the years following the conquest, Titus sought to ease the tensions that had been caused by the conflict, often emphasizing his role in restoring peace and stability to the region. This rhetoric would serve him well in his subsequent reign, as he worked to present himself as a ruler who was dedicated not just to conquest, but also to healing the wounds of a divided empire. The Jewish War and Titus's role in it was thus a defining moment of his early career, one that would be remembered both for the military victory it represented and for the cultural and religious upheavals it caused across the Mediterranean world. Part 12. The legacy of Titus's public works. Titus's reign, though brief, was marked by a significant investment in public works that reshaped Rome and the empire. These monumental projects not only served to strengthen the Roman Empire's infrastructure, but also demonstrated Titus's commitment to his role as a leader who cared deeply for the well-being of the Roman people. While his father Vespasian had initiated several ambitious building projects, Titus expanded upon and completed many of these efforts, ensuring that Rome's physical landscape reflected the strength and prosperity of the Flavian dynasty. Titus's public works were not merely exercises in vanity, but rather strategic initiatives designed to provide the people of Rome with lasting benefits and reinforce imperial authority. One of the most notable accomplishments of Titus's reign was the completion of the Colosseum, a monumental arena that would go on to become one of the most iconic symbols of Rome's imperial grandeur. The Colosseum, originally commissioned by Vespasian, was largely completed during Titus's rule, with its grand opening in 80 AD marking a defining moment of his reign. The games held during the inaugural events, which lasted for 100 days, were a spectacle of unparalleled scale, showcasing gladiatorial contests, animal hunts, and mock naval battles. The lavishness of the games was not just for entertainment but served a broader political purpose, demonstrating Titus's ability to deliver on the promises of prosperity and glory that the Flavian dynasty had made to the people of Rome. In addition to the Colosseum, Titus oversaw the completion of other important projects in Rome. One of these was the restoration and improvement of the city's aqueducts, which were essential for providing water to the rapidly growing population. During his reign, Titus worked to ensure that Rome's water supply was not only sufficient, but also managed in a way that reflected his concern for the practical needs of the people. This focus on infrastructure was vital in ensuring the continued functioning of the Roman Empire, as it allowed the city to expand and thrive, even as its population grew and its urban demands increased. Titus also worked on the restoration of public buildings that had been damaged by natural disasters. One such example was the restoration of the Capitol, which had been severely damaged by a fire during the reign of Nero. Under Titus's direction, the Capitol was rebuilt and restored to its former glory, ensuring that it remained a symbol of Roman authority and religious significance. This was an important step in maintaining the religious and political identity of Rome, as the Capitol housed temples dedicated to Jupiter, Juno, and Minerva, three of the most important deities in the Roman pantheon. By overseeing these restorations, Titus demonstrated his understanding of the symbolism of Roman monuments and the role they played in maintaining the cultural cohesion of the empire. Perhaps the most lasting of Titus's public works were the efforts he made to aid in the recovery of regions affected by natural disasters. The eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 AD, which devastated Pompeii, Herculaneum, and surrounding areas, was a defining moment of his reign. Titus's immediate response to the disaster involved sending aid and organizing relief efforts to help the survivors rebuild their cities and lives. He personally oversaw the distribution of funds, land, and resources to those affected, emphasizing his commitment to restoring the prosperity of the region. This rapid and compassionate response to the disaster was not only a testament to Titus's leadership, but also a demonstration of his understanding of the practical needs of the people he governed. The rebuilding efforts following the eruption were part of a broader strategy to maintain imperial authority and demonstrate the Flavian dynasty's care for the people of Rome and its territories. In addition to the reconstruction of Pompeii and Herculaneum, Titus directed efforts to restore public buildings and infrastructure throughout the affected areas, ensuring that life could return to normal as quickly as possible. These efforts contributed significantly to Titus's reputation as a ruler who was not only concerned with military triumphs, but also with the well-being of the Roman people, making him popular among his subjects. Titus's public works also extended beyond Rome to other parts of the empire. His reign saw improvements to roads, aqueducts, and military fortifications, which helped strengthen Roman control over its vast territories. These infrastructure projects were vital for maintaining the logistical and military efficiency of the empire, ensuring that Roman troops could be mobilized quickly and that supplies could flow smoothly across the empire. The impact of these projects was felt far beyond Rome, as they contributed to the stability of the empire and helped to integrate its provinces more effectively. Titus's public works were not simply about grandeur or legacy building. They were about practical governance that benefited the empire's citizens and reinforced the Flavian dynasty's image as a capable, responsive, and caring leadership. His focus on improving the physical infrastructure of the empire, aiding those in need, and restoring damaged public buildings ensured that his reign would be remembered for both its prosperity and its compassion. Part 13: Titus's relationship with the Senate and the people. Titus's brief reign was defined not only by his military achievements and public works, but also by his nuanced approach to governance, particularly in his relationship with the Senate and the Roman people. Unlike some of his predecessors, who often viewed the Senate as a rival to imperial power, Titus sought to maintain a respectful and cooperative relationship with Rome's ruling elite. His father, Vespasian, had restored stability to the Senate by allowing it to regain some of its traditional powers, and Titus, as emperor, continued to work closely with the Senate while asserting his own authority as ruler. Titus understood that balancing the interests of the Senate with the needs of the people was essential for maintaining a stable and prosperous empire. Titus's relationship with the Senate was built on mutual respect, and he sought to maintain the Senate's role in the governance of the empire. He recognized that the Senate, while largely a ceremonial body during the imperial period, still held significant influence and was a vital part of Rome's political system. Unlike emperors who ignored or undermined the Senate, Titus made efforts to consult the Senate on matters of policy and governance, particularly on issues relating to taxation, military affairs, and provincial governance. This collaborative approach earned him the respect of many senators, who appreciated his willingness to work with them rather than bypass them in favor of autocratic rule. However, Titus was also acutely aware of the necessity of maintaining the authority of the emperor over the empire's affairs. While he consulted with the Senate, he did not allow it to dictate imperial policy, understanding that ultimate power resided with the emperor. This balance between respecting the Senate's traditional role and maintaining imperial authority was one of the hallmarks of Titus's reign, and it contributed to the stability of his rule. Titus's ability to navigate the complex political landscape of Rome, where power was often contested between the Senate and the emperor, was one of the reasons why his reign, though short, was viewed favorably by many contemporaries. Beyond his relationship with the Senate, Titus was also deeply concerned with the welfare of the Roman people. His popularity among the people of Rome was rooted in his compassion and his willingness to address their concerns. Following the eruption of Mount Vesuvius, for example, Titus not only provided immediate relief to the survivors, but also ensured that the city of Rome was properly supplied with food and resources to avoid any shortages or economic disruptions. His quick response to the eruption and his public generosity in the aftermath endeared him to the people, who saw him as an emperor who cared deeply about their welfare. Titus's connection to the Roman people was also reinforced by his commitment to public entertainment, particularly through the Grand Games held in the Colosseum, which were designed to celebrate the completion of the Flavian Amphitheater in 80 AD. These games were not just a form of entertainment, but also a means of reinforcing the bond between the emperor and the people, with Titus presenting himself as a generous and benevolent ruler. The 100-day celebration, which included gladiatorial combat, animal hunts, and naval battles, was a lavish display of imperial power and wealth, but it also served to maintain public order and ensure that the people remained loyal to the Flavian dynasty. Titus also demonstrated his concern for the people's well-being through his efforts to rebuild the city following fires, floods, and other natural disasters. These projects were not just about restoring public infrastructure. They were about demonstrating that the emperor was attentive to the needs of his citizens and capable of managing the empire's challenges. Titus's reign was marked by a series of public works designed to improve the living conditions of ordinary Romans, and his personal involvement in these projects helped to solidify his image as a ruler who was deeply invested in the welfare of the Roman people. Despite his popularity among the Senate and the people, Titus's reign was not without challenges. The emperor had to navigate the complex and sometimes contentious dynamics of imperial politics, balancing the demands of his family, the Senate, and the military, while also ensuring that his policies were effective in maintaining the stability of the empire. Titus's ability to manage these competing interests, while still presenting himself as a just and fair ruler, contributed to the overall success of his reign. In addition to his political and public achievements, Titus's relationship with the people was also shaped by his personal character. Known for his humility, kindness, and generosity, he earned the nickname the Delight of Mankind from those who appreciated his personal warmth and compassion. Titus's willingness to listen to the concerns of ordinary Romans and his accessibility as an emperor helped to foster a sense of connection between him and the people he ruled. His personal popularity was a key factor in the stability of his reign, and it ensured that Titus was remembered as an emperor who genuinely cared about the lives of his subjects. Part 14: Titus's lasting impact and early death. The reign of Titus, though incredibly brief, left an indelible mark on the Roman Empire, shaping the trajectory of its development for years to come. His ability to manage crises, his military successes, and his commitment to public works earned him the admiration of both the Senate and the people, and his legacy would continue to resonate long after his death. However, despite his many accomplishments and the popularity he enjoyed during his reign, Titus's life was tragically short-lived, and his sudden death in 81 AD left the empire in a state of mourning. His untimely passing at the age of just 41 was a shock to the Roman world, cutting short what many believed could have been a long and prosperous reign. Titus's death was the result of a fever, which some historians speculate was caused by the stress of his duties, while others suggest that it could have been a natural illness or even the result of poisoning, though there is no conclusive evidence to support this theory. Regardless of the cause, Titus's death was deeply mourned by the Roman people, who had come to view him not only as a capable emperor, but also as a man of great kindness and compassion. His popularity, both among the Senate and the populace, was a testament to his character and leadership, and his sudden demise left many wondering what might have been had he lived longer. Upon Titus's death, his younger brother, Domitian, succeeded him as emperor, though Domitian's reign would be markedly different from that of Titus. Whereas Titus had been beloved for his generosity and his attention to the needs of the people, Domitian's rule would be characterized by suspicion, autocracy, and an often strained relationship with the Senate. Despite these differences, the Flavian dynasty continued through Domitian, who sought to build upon his brother's legacy while establishing his own imperial identity. The legacy of Titus, however, was far from forgotten. His accomplishments, both as a military leader and as an emperor committed to the welfare of the Roman people, would continue to be celebrated long after his death. The Colosseum, which he had completed, would stand as a lasting monument to his reign, becoming one of the most iconic symbols of Roman imperial power. In the centuries that followed, the games held in the Colosseum would become a defining feature of Roman culture, and the structure itself would endure as a testament to the grandeur of the Flavian dynasty. In addition to the Colosseum, Titus's other public works, including his restoration efforts after natural disasters and his rebuilding of the capital, would continue to impact the Roman Empire long after his death. His focus on infrastructure and his efforts to ensure that the people of Rome were taken care of would be remembered as a model of good governance. Titus's role in the completion of major building projects and his approach to responding to crises would set a precedent for future emperors, who would continue to build upon his legacy of public service. Titus's reign also marked the end of an era in Roman history. His father, Vespasian, had founded the Flavian dynasty, and Titus's reign represented the height of the dynasty's power. After Titus's death, Domitian's reign would be marked by a darker tone, and the stability that had characterized the early Flavian period would begin to unravel. Nevertheless, Titus's reign was viewed as a period of relative peace and prosperity for the Roman Empire, and his actions would be remembered as a model of leadership during times of crisis. The early death of Titus was a tragic loss for Rome, but it was also a reminder of the fragility of power and life in the imperial system. His legacy, built on compassion, military victory, and a focus on public welfare, ensured that he would be remembered as one of Rome's more capable and beloved emperors. His unexpected death left Rome with a sense of unfulfilled promise, as many wondered how the empire might have fared under his continued leadership. Titus's reign, though brief, left a lasting impression on the Roman Empire, and he would go down in history as a hero who emerged during times of crisis and helped restore Rome to its former glory. Though Titus's life was short, his impact on the Roman Empire and the Roman people was profound and enduring. His legacy would live on, not only through the monumental works he left behind, but also in the hearts and minds of the people who saw him as the delight of mankind, a ruler who genuinely cared for the welfare of his subjects. The story of Titus, Rome's hero amid crisis, would continue to inspire future generations and serve as a reminder of the power of compassionate leadership. Part 15: Titus's enduring legacy in history. Though Titus's reign lasted only a little over 2 years, his legacy has endured across centuries, cementing his place in the annals of history as one of Rome's most beloved emperors. His leadership during a time of crisis, his public works, and his military achievements set a standard for future emperors, establishing him as a model of good governance in the face of adversity. Titus's legacy is not only seen in the physical monuments he left behind, like the Colosseum and the Arch of Titus, but also in the way he is remembered by both contemporaries and later generations. The people of Rome saw him as a compassionate ruler, one who genuinely cared for their well-being, and his sudden death left a deep sense of loss in the empire. Titus's military victories, particularly the crushing of the Jewish revolt and the destruction of the Second Temple in Jerusalem, are often cited as defining moments of his career. While the brutality of the conquest and the eventual dispersal of the Jewish people left scars, the victory itself affirmed Rome's unchallenged authority in the region. The successful conclusion of the Jewish War reinforced the idea that Titus was not only a military commander, but also an emperor capable of dealing with large-scale rebellions and ensuring the empire's security. This was vital for Rome, especially during a time when the empire's borders were under constant threat from external and internal forces. Titus's efforts to suppress the Jewish revolt helped secure Roman dominance in the eastern Mediterranean for generations to come. Yet, it was his response to domestic crises that truly marked Titus's reign as distinct from those of other emperors. In the wake of the eruption of Mount Vesuvius and the resulting devastation of Pompeii and Herculaneum, Titus's quick action to send aid and oversee reconstruction efforts demonstrated his commitment to the people of Rome and his far-reaching empire. His relief efforts were seen as a demonstration of imperial benevolence, a stark contrast to the often harsh tactics employed by earlier rulers when faced with similar disasters. Titus's personal involvement in these efforts, as well as his dedication to rebuilding infrastructure and providing financial aid, enhanced his reputation as a ruler who placed the welfare of his people above all else. Moreover, Titus's architectural contributions have continued to shape Rome's identity as the center of an empire that spanned continents. The Colosseum, built during his reign, remains one of the most iconic landmarks in the world, symbolizing the Roman Empire's power and its complex relationship with spectacle, entertainment, and control. The Arch of Titus, also built in his honor, stands as a permanent reminder of his military triumphs, particularly the sacking of Jerusalem and the symbolic victory over a rebellious province. These monumental works not only reflect the grandeur of the Flavian dynasty, but also the lasting impact Titus had on Roman culture and the memory of his reign. Titus's early death, while tragic, also contributed to his legacy as a ruler cut down in the prime of his leadership. His sudden passing left an image of a ruler who had accomplished much, but whose potential was left unfulfilled. In the eyes of many, Titus became the emperor who never had the chance to fully demonstrate the scope of his abilities, leaving Rome to wonder what more he might have achieved had he lived longer. The Roman historian Suetonius, who recorded many details of the emperor's life, praised Titus for his virtues, emphasizing his kindness, humility, and dedication to public welfare. This sentiment was echoed by many of his contemporaries, who regarded him as one of the few emperors who truly cared for the Roman people and governed with a sense of justice and compassion. The transition to Domitian's rule after Titus's death marked a shift in the political climate of Rome, with Domitian's more authoritarian rule contrasting sharply with the openness and public goodwill that characterized Titus's reign. Though Domitian's reign would become infamous for its increasing despotism, it is important to note that Titus's legacy continued to influence the way Romans viewed imperial power and leadership. Titus's example as an emperor who listened to the people and worked toward their welfare remained a touchstone for future rulers, even as Rome shifted toward a more autocratic form of governance. Titus's enduring legacy also lives on in the cultural memory of Rome, and his reign is often remembered as a time of stability and prosperity following the turbulence of the Year of the Four Emperors. His reign bridged the gap between his father's efforts to restore order after the chaos of civil war and the more troubled years under Domitian. Titus represents the ideal of leadership in Roman history, an emperor who, despite the challenges, demonstrated the virtues of military prowess, public service, and genuine compassion for his people. His legacy lives on not only in monuments and historical accounts, but also in the hearts of the Roman citizens he served so well during his reign. Thanks for tuning in to Historical Legacies. If you enjoyed this dive into history, please like, subscribe, and share. Join us next time for more fascinating stories from the past.